Hi, welcome, welcome. I am so excited to be here with you all today. My name is Stephanie Mara, and I have my master's degree in somatic psychotherapy, and I call myself a somatic nutritional counselor. And I have combined my background with somatics and nutrition and trauma work to really support individuals in their relationship with their food and their body. And so we're going to explore a little bit more about that today. And I have some uh, slides to share. Well, let's see. Looks like it doesn't want to access that right now. Let's see. Good times. Love tech. That's why we're here. The combination of the tech world. So I don't know if anyone is seeing this, but we'll just keep moving forward just in case that's not working, and we'll just dive in. So in regards to my background, basically I am the creator of what I call my work is somatic eating, and I've trademarked that. And what basically somatic eating is, it is a body-oriented, sensation-focused therapeutic approach to eating. And what that basically means is that oftentimes we're approaching food from a mental space and not necessarily from the space of our body. And so, in my approach with somatic eating, you will learn how to observe bodily sensations and also your nervous system state to discover what satiates and satisfies your unique body. And there are a lot of messages out there that we receive from diet culture, from wellness culture, from fitness culture about what to eat, how to eat, when to eat, that it can get really, really confusing on how do we listen to our body's wisdom and the inherent wisdom that our body holds in telling us what resonates with us and what doesn't. And if I back up for a second, if you're new to the world of somatics, basically what somatic means is it means relating to the body, especially distinct from the mind. So somatic psychology as a whole, it explores the connection between past experiences and patterns of tension in the body, and building awareness of sensations in our body's different states can connect us to our inherent wisdom that can guide the healing process. And so when we're talking about kind of this growing field of somatic nutrition, it's combining that we have to relate to the body in regards to nutrition, instead of a lot of these messages that we get even from anti-diet culture around what is the right or wrong way to eat, around what time, what quality of food, all the many different things. And there are many things that can get in the way of listening to our body. So let's kind of dive into what those things might be. So, for example, things that can get in the way of listening to our body can be trauma, can be generational trauma, can be our family of origin. All those messages that you get from your family growing up, even if it's not something that you overtly received around someone specifically telling you how you should or shouldn't look or how you should or shouldn't eat. Sometimes these can be covert messages in the messages we receive from hearing someone in our family talk about other people's bodies, or hearing people talk about their diet or what they are or are not eating. It affects us at a really young age, and we start to create kind of this internal blueprint around how to be in relationship with food. Other things that can get in the way of listening to our body, especially when in relationship with food, can be, like I was saying before, diet, wellness, and fitness culture, societal norms. Also, this beauty standards, weight stigma, and kind of fat phobic culture that we also live in that puts a lot of pressure that we need to look a certain way. And that's so connected to our ability to be worthy, to be valued, to be loved. And so that can affect how we listen to our body, because if we're always trying to meet this cultural standard, we don't really get to hear what works for ourselves and what doesn't. Additionally, our level of support. If you've ever experienced food scarcity, cultural expectations, your emotional capacity, which is also, can start with what you grew up around and how much emotions were expressed or were valued or were allowed space for in your home life growing up. Medical conditions. So if you experience a lot of pain or discomfort in your body, that can also, get in the way, so to speak, of getting in touch with the body when the body also is providing a lot of cues of danger that it is in pain. And also, social media, all the messages that we receive on social media, and there's so much conflicting guidance and advice out there that sometimes it can feel really overwhelming to listen to ourselves, where it can also feel sometimes just a little bit easier, where I don't know if you've ever kind of experienced the need to just want someone to tell you what to do. Like, can't someone else tell me what to eat, when to eat, and I can just do that? And, it would make it very easy if there was this very cut and dry answer to our relationship with food, and that ultimately the expert actually is your body. And that's why I get so passionate about this work of somatic eating, is that it is your body that will tell you what works for it. And we get to learn, how do we listen to the body's language? So if we can start to see that any food habit or pattern that you potentially have, it's trying to support and protect you in some way. And I know that can kind of feel like a new concept sometimes, like especially if you're someone, like a lot of the work that I do as I support individuals around binge eating or emotional eating or yo-yo dieting, body image concerns, all those kinds of food coping mechanisms is kind of how I like to call it. And a lot of these behaviors, they can feel so painful to enact a lot of the times. Even if you find that you just self-soothe or have a tendency to overeat a lot, all of these behaviors are often protecting us from something. Because if we are having the experience of feeling overly full, let's say, or let's say you go long periods of time without eating, and you are constantly navigating feeling extra hungry or kind of lightheaded. Sometimes those things can be a distraction from what our body is holding on to, from the emotions and sensations that are coming up that may feel a little bit too overwhelming to address and be with. And the thing is that food is often our first form of love we receive as a baby. So when you think about it, we come out into this world, and often our first experience of like love is we are being held, and we might be being fed, and we're being seen and attuned to. And in that experience, food then connects in our body of, oh, okay, food can give me this felt sense experience of everything is going to be okay in the world. And we remember that. It is just conditioned inside of us. And so when you're going through hardships in your life, sometimes that body memory comes forth of, oh, I'm not feeling the way I want to feel. Oh, food could maybe be a resource right now that will support me in feeling safer and more secure, and the kind of this sense that I'm going to get through this period of time. So we get to bring in a ton of compassion on this journey, that you are never ever doing anything wrong or bad when it comes to your relationship with food. And we get to start to invite in a lot of curiosity about what your food behaviors are trying to protect you from feeling or facing. So how this kind of combines with trauma, for example. And let's get clear on, when we're talking about trauma, it's anything that was too much, too fast, or too little for too long. And that can be, anything in your life that kind of is defined in that space, that it's not about the event. It's actually how your body processed the event. And often our food coping mechanisms get cultivated as a response to our past events that occurred. And I love this quote by Bessel van der Kolk. He wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And he says, being traumatized means continuing to organize your life as if the trauma were still going on, unchanged and immutable, as every new encounter or event is contaminated by the past. So your body doesn't know the difference between a real or perceived threat. And food can come in as the answer to feeling safe again. So when you start taking on this perspective, we get to start to invite in, like I was saying before, a lot of compassion that whatever's playing out with food for you isn't about willpower. It's not about you being weak. Usually, actually, I like to normalize that food became your answer to something else that you are navigating. And we get to start to be curious about what else your body could be holding on to, what else it is navigating inside of you. So when you've kind of experienced intense moments in the past, what can happen is that it can start to affect the function of your nervous system. And this is where we start to get into how do we listen to the body? How do we start to learn the language of the body? And one of many different ways. There's many ways to listen to the body. And that's why, even talking about how to somatically listen to the body, the title of this, it is so rich and so dense. And there's so many pathways that we could go down. I decided just to utilize one pathway today of let's explore your nervous system. So we have what's called our autonomic nervous system, and it is automatic. When something is perceived as threatening, it automatically turns on for us. And thank goodness it does. So, if you are actually in danger, it's not like you have to tell your nervous system to turn on for you. It just does that. So within the autonomic nervous system, we have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And if you've been following this a lot on social media, it's gotten very, very popular in talking about like nervous system regulation work. And you may have heard a lot of things around fight or flight or freeze and things like that. So when we're talking about the sympathetic nervous system, we're talking about that fight or flight response. It's very mobilization. It's very go, go, go. A lot of our culture, and especially the times that we have been living in for the past several years, I think a lot of individuals are living in that sympathetic nervous system state, and that a lot of individuals' bodies are very heightened because we have been living in a very intense time where there are a lot of perceived dangers around us. And so if we think of the nervous system like pedals in the car, we need both. And if we think the parasympathetic nervous system is our relaxation response and that sympathetic nervous system is mobilization, so you can kind of think of sympathetic nervous system as the gas and parasympathetic nervous system as the brake. So we need both of them. You need both pedals in a car. And what we want to try and start to find is getting to know, okay, when has my foot been really down on the gas and I've been going, and I actually need to start to tap on the brake? And when has actually my foot been too much down on the brake? So you would be immobile if you always have your foot down on the brake. It would be hard to get up off the couch. It would be hard to get out of bed, where actually you need to tap on the gas to kind of mobilize yourself and get yourself going. So this is where we get to start to observe the ebb and flow of our body, that we go in and out of these states all day, every day. And this is why, like, kind of noticing within yourself different emotions, different sensations that are correlated to these different states, so you can start to learn what your body needs and when. So if we just go through a very quick example of what each kind of state might feel like in your body. First, there is a fight response. So this can feel like tense tightness, a desire to punch or push or rip or grind your teeth. You might notice yourself kind of glaring at other people unknowingly, just because you are in a different state. And the interesting thing, just as a side point on this, is that when we are in different states, also our perception of the world changes. So this is why also, when we talk about body image, for example, that if you have a day where you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel fantastic. I love the way I look. And the very next day, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to change everything about myself. Like nothing looks right to me right now. I need to go on another diet, all those impulses that come up. It's not actually that your body has changed. Your body doesn't really change that much in a 24-hour period of time, not even in a 36 or 48-hour period of time. It takes quite a while for the body to change. And that really what has occurred is you have moved into a different nervous system state. So one morning you maybe woke up in that relaxation response of the parasympathetic nervous system, looked in the mirror and you're like, wow, this is great. And then the next morning, maybe you got into a fight with a loved one, maybe you didn't sleep that well, and you woke up in the sympathetic nervous system, and what you see of your body is entirely different. So coming back to that fight response, other things that you might feel in your body is a desire to stomp or kick or smash, feelings of anger or rage, knotted stomach or nausea or burning, and an increased breathing and heart rate. So this is where, again, we just get to learn, how your body feels is giving you information of where your nervous system is at. So going on to a flight response. So flight can also feel like restlessness in your legs, shallow breathing, increased anxiety. You might be constantly scanning your environment. When you think about if you were somewhere that felt dangerous and you had to be looking out for yourself, that you'd be scanning your environment all the time, looking out if there's a potential tiger behind the bush over there and making sure that you're okay. So if you ever notice yourself really just looking around a room a lot, you can kind of get curious, is your body feeling kind of endangered in that moment? And it doesn't have to be real. It can also just be perceived, because the body, again, if it just thinks that it is in danger, whether it actually is or not, it's kind of like that experience of you could be sitting on the couch and nothing is actually happening, but you have a lot of anxiety running through your system. That yes, you could look out and be like, okay, nothing is actually happening here, but your body is perceiving something, and it might not even be something in this moment. It could have been you just got off a phone call with someone and it reminded you of a phone call in the past where something really bad happened afterwards. So our body doesn't work in the linear timeline. It kind of can jump about based off of our memories and what feels familiar and what's coming up in any particular moment. So other things about flight can be, trouble sitting still, feeling trapped, tense, a desire to engage also in excessive exercise. Then on to the freeze response. And so freeze is actually a state that is in between fight or flight and immobilized and collapsed. So if we have kind of you're in total shutdown, and then you have what a lot of us know is that hyper stress response, freeze is in the middle. If you think about it as, if a deer is frozen in headlights, their heart might be pounding so hard on the inside, but they feel stuck on the outside. So freeze response can feel like stuck, cold or frozen, numb, pale, stiff, a sense of heaviness, like it's hard to get moving. You might notice holding your breath or having restricted breathing and feel kind of a sense of dread. Your heart might be pounding and you might have a change in your heart rate, either a decrease or an increase. And then we also have kind of what I was talking about in that shutdown. I like to call it flop. So if we're going fight, flight, freeze, flop, so we'll just go with the F's. And, here you can kind of have a response that feels like hopeless, helpless, numb, despair, slow breathing and heart rate. Your mind is shut down and there's an impulse to kind of hide away from the world. And then lastly, you have your relaxation response. So this can feel like slow and steady breathing. You might feel calm. You have an increased sense of well-being. Your mind can feel clear. It's easy to concentrate and be present. Overall, there's a sense of ease. Your heart rate is steady, and you might even notice having stronger digestion here and feel a general sense of safety. So here's kind of an example of how we feel in all of our nervous system states. Now, if we think of our nervous system like a ladder, and your food behaviors are a response to where you are on that ladder. So, food will be experienced differently depending upon where you're at in your nervous system, and your food behaviors will change whether you're in the parasympathetic nervous system or the sympathetic nervous system. And also, your food urges and experiences are information from your body and how it's feeling and processing your external and internal environment. So let's say, for example, you're noticing having a lot of food cravings, and they especially come in the evenings. Now, we get to start to invite in a lot of curiosity that this isn't a matter of that you are doing something wrong in your relationship with food, that cravings are information from your body. So you might start getting curious about how is every single evening you go into maybe a fight or flight response. And we kind of can start to explore, do you have any memories around the evening times that maybe felt scary or threatening to your well-being, or something happened in the past, or maybe night times have always been a space that there's a really strong sense of loneliness that comes on, and it feels really difficult to be with and experience what is showing up inside of your body. So, food comes in as a way to help you with moving into a different nervous system state. So, things you can start to explore for yourself are when you are starting to notice maybe having a lot of food cravings, or having some emotional eating, or if you're someone who navigates binge eating, or even if you have the impulse to restrict for some reason. We get to just say, okay, what is my body trying to communicate to me within this food behavior? Not that there is anything bad or wrong with these things happening. So let's take binge eating, for example, which I work with individuals a lot around. So, binge eating is this very heightened, dramatic experience inside of the body. And if, when growing up, let's say there was always fighting at the dinner table. And what you learned is that if you eat really, really quickly at the dinner table, you can get out of there faster. And then you don't have to sit in the discomfort of what is going on with your siblings or your parents, or the people around you. And so, in that experience, you start conditioning to yourself to eat really quickly over and over and over again. And over time, as you grow into being an adult, maybe you forget about those kid experiences, so that you find yourself maybe not even sitting at a table to slow down and eat your meal, because the memories that your body has around a dinner table is, this is a space that doesn't feel safe. Bad things happen here. So you start staying away from sitting down and eating meals. Maybe you start eating in a distracted way, because being in relationship with food also reminds you of maybe a lot of things that used to happen around food. And so then you find yourself kind of sitting in front of the television and eating food. And there, it's kind of hard to catch your hunger and your fullness cues. And so you think that it is a willpower issue. That's what we're told by diet culture. And I've seen a lot of like really funny memes out there that always talks about how diet culture is like the biggest gaslighter, that constantly tells you that you are the problem, that you are the one that's doing it wrong. And if anything, it is actually dieting that perpetuates this experience that we can't trust ourselves. So coming back to this example of binge eating, actually is something that I like to reframe it as protective eating, because it is protecting you from feeling the pain that maybe you had in past experiences when you were in relationship with food in certain environments. And the other thing about these different nervous system states, when we're starting to learn, oh, okay, these different food behaviors are actually coming in as a response to where I'm at in my nervous system. And my nervous system is not in my control, but we can start to show up for the nervous system and support it in various ways to move in and out of different states. And, in this experience, you get to start to see yourself in a new light, that you've never been the problem. Food hasn't even ever really been the problem. It's just you've been doing the best you can to navigate what has been going on in your body. And the other thing that I like to normalize is that when we move into, let's say, the sympathetic nervous system, for example, our digestion actually shuts down in that state. So when you think of also the parasympathetic nervous system, it is our rest or digest state. And that's where we have a really easy time listening to our body, listening to our hunger and fullness cues, hearing what our body needs. But when we have past trauma or we're in a kind of a stressful environment, we might be living more in that sympathetic nervous system where digestion shuts down. And from there, it's actually quite difficult to hear our hunger and fullness cues. And this is where I actually divert away from intuitive eating, for example, where one of the tenets in there is to listen to your hunger and fullness cues. Now, that is incredibly difficult to do if you are navigating living in the sympathetic nervous system, because those cues might not be online for you whatsoever. Because what happens is your blood and all of your resources actually move away from your digestive tract into your limbs to be able to fight or flee away from any perceived threat that is around you. So, what we want to start to practice is really starting to notice that when your food coping mechanisms are high, you might be picking up too many cues of threat around you. And we want to start to get into the practice of bringing in more cues of safety. And when I talk about cues of safety, what those basically are is it's kind of like this hit inside your body of like when I look at certain things of let's take this mug, for example, because I like always have it on me when I'm like teaching this kind of things. And I love this mug and the color of it. And so when I look at this, it kind of gives me this hit of safety of, my chest kind of feels light. I notice like a deeper breath come in. My face kind of relaxes a little bit. And really, we have cues of safety all around us all the time. So anything that if you looked around your room right now, even if we did this together, and you kind of look at different shapes, different colors, different objects, and just notice how it feels inside of your body. Notice your body's response to some of the things that are around you. And you might notice your body respond in different ways. Like if you see, clutter on your countertop, you might notice like the cue of threat of that, where you might get a little contracted, or you might be like, ugh, like have an internal ick inside of your body. So that's your body's way of talking to you. It talks to you through sensations, it talks to you through emotions, and it talks to you through symptoms. So if we can start to see that when you have a certain reaction to something, that is your body's way of telling you how it is perceiving and digesting and assimilating that thing. And you can choose that when you are taking in too many cues of threat, you can actually shift your attention to cues of safety and even look around and kind of zoom out. And like I was saying before, that just as we would kind of scan an environment when we are looking out to make sure that we are safe, you also get to scan your environment to show your body that you are safe right now. So this is kind of orienting to your space to say, yep, no danger there, no danger there. Yep, we're all good over here. And you actually get to show your body we are safe right now. And what I've seen in a lot of my work and those that I have supported through my programs, that when we start to feel safer inside of our body, that's when food kind of gets released from the responsibility of supporting us and feeling safe and secure in the world. So other ways to kind of support the body and feeling safe, and this is something that is also, you may have seen on social media a lot, is the practice of shaking. And when I always think about like my dog, for example, he's a little corgi mix, and he's a beautifully stubborn and lovable guy. He is my favorite thing in the world. He is also a cue of safety for me. And, when he feels threatened, when he is kind of walking down the street, and he's often scared of most dogs, and we're about to pass another dog, he gets his hackles from the top of his head to his tail. And he waits until he passes that dog. And then once he's sure that the threat has passed, what does he do? He shakes it off. So that ability as human beings that when something kind of affects us in our day, we sometimes get stuck in it and we spin about it and we try to figure out how something could be different, where usually what it is happening inside of our body that feels threatened, and we can't talk ourselves out of a perceived threat. This is not a logical experience. So something that you can even practice, even when you feel like your food cravings get really super high because you've been picking up a lot of cues of threat throughout the day, and your food cravings are high, because what food can also do is it can be a hit of dopamine, it produces serotonin, it also helps with endorphins. So food is absolutely a fantastic resource. I even like to tell most individuals that we never want to take food off of your list of resources for you. It always gets to be an option for you because it is really effective in the short term. It's just often not effective in the long term. And so when you start to get into this practice of really picking up on how your body is feeling and then connecting that with, oh, my body's feeling this way because that's the way it's communicating to me that it doesn't feel safe, you can start to practice shaking. And what shaking does is shaking comes from the part of the brain that holds emotion, which is the limbic brain, and it sends a signal that the danger has passed and the fight or flight response can turn off. So there's no right way to shake. You can shake a hand, you can shake your whole body, you can shake your legs, you can even turn on some music and get into your body and move about your house. And if you need to do this, in private, you can maybe close the door of your house if you live with other people and just kind of put on headphones and really allow yourself to kind of immerse yourself in the music and get into your body and move through whatever's showing up. And the other piece that I like to bring in that we can all practice here together right now is we also want to increase your sense of safety when you are in relationship with food. So there is a practice called SIFT, and this is created by Dr. Daniel Siegel, and it stands for sensation, image, feeling, and thought. And so let's just practice together right now. And I want you to recall the last time that you felt really safe around food. And this could be a really joyous experience you had with food. So this could have been a memory with friends or with family. And I want you just to start to bring that forth in your mind. And what we're going to start to practice here is notice that as you remember in that moment, being in relationship with food, with whoever else you were around, whatever environment you were in, start to notice how that feels in your body. So you might describe the sensations that are present. You might do a really quick body scan. You could start at your feet, move up your legs, go into your belly. Notice any changes in your breath, go into your chest, notice any changes in the sensations in your face. So also shoulders, this is a place where you might notice some changes as well, and you might notice some tingling or a sense of ease or lightness or some buzzing. So just kind of noticing and describing that for yourself. And then if we move on to imagery, just starting to bring forth, if you could picture in your mind's eye, what were all of the images around you? So if you could describe, if you were outside, what did the sky look like as best as you can remember? And, what were you around? Were you, at a table, and what color was the table? Or, what was underneath your feet? Or if you can remember even what you were wearing that day. So really getting rich and deep into this felt sense of this safe food memory for you. And then moving on to feeling. So starting to get into how did you feel in that experience? So did you feel joyful? Did you feel connected? Did you feel excited? Did you feel exhilarated? So kind of touching in on how you felt, any feeling words that come forth. And then lastly, thought. So coming into what you were thinking in that experience, like I will share that usually the memory, I call it my beach memory, is I grew up going to the beach most summers with my family, and we would always walk on the boardwalk and get ice cream. And so, I can remember thinking in those experiences like, oh, this ice cream is so good. Or, wow, I really love how crisp the cool air is. Or, I remembering like that was really funny and laughing at the jokes that are being told in my family. So, any thought that you can kind of remember thinking in those experiences? So, what we're kind of doing here is we're creating an embodied memory of safety when in relationship with food. And if you have struggles in feeling like you get really overwhelmed, and food can kind of be sometimes an anxiety provoking experience because of maybe all the messages you receive from what to eat, how to eat. Let's say you've been on and off diets for years and you feel really detached from your body. What we need to start with is these tiny little micro moments of safety with food. And even if it was like super, super small, it might be the tiniest moment. It might not be a big one, especially if food has never really felt like a very safe thing to interact with, depending upon what your history is like with food in your body. That you can kind of start to draw forth. And even if you need to make something up, because I know for some individuals, it's hard to maybe even bring forth a food memory. But even if you need to imagine what you think a safe food memory might be, even if it's something that you like watched in a movie, like I always think of the Elf movie when he's, shoving all of the food in his mouth and it's just a concoction of pasta and like Pop Tarts, and he's just having the most joyous experience ever. You can kind of sometimes feel viscerally that when you even see someone else eat with joy. So even if you can't think of a memory yourself, sometimes we can draw from media, from movies, from television shows around seeing someone else eat with so much joy and what that brings up within us. And the practice can be that every time you're about to interact with food, so this could be a pause before you eat breakfast, a pause before you eat lunch, a pause before you eat dinner, and start to bring forth this memory. And you can even give it like a title, like if this was your blank memory. So you're like, okay, I'm bringing forth like I said, mine's called like my beach memory, and you can bring it forth right before you're about to eat. And just as I've been talking about, that the body doesn't know the difference between real or perceived, that the body doesn't also know the difference between real or perceived experience of safety. So if you imagine yourself in a safe memory and a safe environment, your body starts to feel that. Like just when you start to remember, and it doesn't even have to do with food, memories of the past, of things you've been through that made you feel really joyful in your body, you feel that joy in this present moment. So we can start to support your body in guiding it into that safety response, that parasympathetic nervous system before you start eating your food, so that you can actually then hear, how does this food resonate with my body? Does it work for me? Does it not work for me? Do I enjoy this food? Am I eating this food only because I think I enjoy it? But when I actually listen to my body gives me a very different message. Maybe you think that a certain food would bring you relaxation and calm and ease. But when you are actually slowing down and eating it, maybe you notice it actually makes you feel tight and tense and bloated and uncomfortable. And that's where we just get to see that this process of coming in relationship to somatically listening to the body when in relationship with food is kind of, imagine it like you're a scientist and you're putting your scientist hat on and you're just collecting data. So you eat and you notice and you observe and you collect data. And you eat again and you notice and you observe and you collect data. And you get to see that there's actually so many different things, that it's not just the food itself that affects how we relate with food, how we assimilate food, what affects our food choices, and how we digest food long term. So that's why just even in this sift experience that you can start to practice bringing forth before you start to eat to support your body in feeling safe, to get into that rest and digest state where you'll also be able to hear more of your hunger and fullness cues, because you are going to be telling your body, hey, we're safe here. You can start to actually send my resources towards the digestive tract. We don't need to fight. We don't need to flee. There's nothing that we are not in danger right now. And your body gets to be like, oh, okay, all right, we just get to focus on this food right now. And your ability to assess what supports you and feeling the way you want to feel in your body will grow as you learn your body's language over time. So, this is just kind of some resources that I wanted to offer today in just this is the tip of the iceberg in how to listen to your body, in how to start to slow down, to get curious about, okay, how does my body feel? What might it be telling me through the emotions and sensations that are present, or the food impulses that are here, because they all have body information to offer you. It could also be information of what it's trying to tell you through your nervous system state. And then from there, you kind of get to explore, what your body may need in that moment. So it may need support in feeling a little bit more safety. So you can do that through, putting in more input of safety through something like shaking, or you can bring forth a memory, or you can look at certain objects around your room to actually show your body, hey, there is nothing that is actually a threat in this particular moment, and you are safe right now. So, if you found this information really fascinating and you want to learn more, first, you can find more information on my website, stephaniemara.com, and that's Mara, and Stephanie is a Phie. And then I am on every social media platform that is out there. So you can find me on Instagram at _Stephanie Mara. You can find me on TikTok at Stephanie Mara Fox. That's my last name. Facebook, also Stephanie Mara, and LinkedIn, also Stephanie Mara Fox as well. And then if you want to do a deeper dive into this somatic eating work, and you've maybe been struggling in relationship with your food and your body, and you are ready to kind of have a very different relationship with it, you're ready to get off of the dieting roller coaster, maybe you've been navigating going in and out of the restrict binge cycle, which it often happens as well, you can go to somaticeating.com, and the waitlist is currently up for my somatic eating program. I run this program twice a year. So one actually just ended, and the next class is going to start again in April. And the next one after that will be in October. So if you are interested in diving deeper into this connection between somatic work, your relationship with food, and also potentially a past history of trauma, the somatic eating program is a wonderful resource and a great way to kind of dive deeper with me on that. And I do also have a one-on-one private practice. So if you're looking for individualized support, you can also go to stephaniemara.com, reach out to me on my contact page. You can also schedule a free 20-minute connect call with me, and we can kind of chat one-on-one together. And then some other, free resources for you is one, if you're curious about the current relationship status of your food, I do have a quiz on my website. And so you can go to stephaniemara.com/food relationship quiz. And that will give you some information on your current relationship status with food. And I give a lot of tips about what to look out for and how to navigate whatever relationship status you're currently in. And there is also a link on my website that I have basically a week kind of emotional eating journey that you can go on. It's just an email that gets dropped into your inbox every single day on how to start to practice this somatic work if you are navigating emotional eating. And last, I put out a podcast every single Saturday. It's called, my podcast is called Satiated, and there's a lot of fantastic resources on my podcast. So if you want to do a deep dive, some of my solo episodes are really, really short because I like to make them bite-sized so that they are digestible. Because when you are starting to tap into the body, and you have been living away from your body for so long, it can actually feel very overwhelming to start to make contact with the body. So the example that I like to give is, if we think of it like a dam, we don't want to just like break that dam down. You're going to have like a flood of emotions and sensations and all sorts of things that might come in that feel way too overwhelming, that you might build that dam back up and even thicker and harder than it was before. So we just kind of want to like poke holes in it. And so that you start very slowly in like micro moments and bite-sized ways getting in touch with the body, even if that starts with this little pause before you eat to connect and just even ask yourself, how am I feeling? When's the last time I checked in with myself? And when you ask yourself how you're feeling, you might get curious about, how are my shoulders doing? Is my jaw tight? Have I been thinking anything for the last 30 minutes? Like, how does my tummy feel? What is my breath doing? So that you have just these little tiny pauses to start to connect with yourself. And we're not spending a luxurious amount of time. Meditation can sometimes be supportive, but if you haven't really been connecting with your body, sometimes that can feel very overwhelming to spend that much time with it. So usually I like to recommend setting a timer for a second. A second goes by real quick, but that was 1 second you sat with your body longer than maybe you normally do. And so you can check out my podcast, and there are these little bite-sized, little lessons that you can start to incorporate, start to learn how to connect with your body more. And please email me at support@stephaniemera.com anytime. I am here for you on this journey. So if you are ever looking for more support in your relationship with your food and your body, I'm here for you every step of the way. And if you were here and you listened to this, drop me something also on a social media platform, or if you learned something this and you had a takeaway, feel free to like add that to your stories or come on to my Instagram page and let me know, what clicked for you, or, tag me and let me know what you learned and what you're walking away with today. So it was so wonderful to connect with you and be here with you all today. And I hope to connect with you all again real soon. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.